Hey y'all, I just wanted to start off today's video by, for one, saying that we now have a capture card, so audio from now on should start being better. The next Elden Ring video, it's still gonna sound like how it did in the first one, but that after that episode, things will start sounding a lot better. But I also wanted to bring up in today's video, I'm going to try something a little different, which is just, I'm going to be talking about cards you can add to the deck with the deck profile instead of having it at the end of the video as I used to do. This is just to see if it would help me, edit videos a little bit better. But I'm kind of leaning towards just leaving it towards the end of the video. If you guys can, let me know which one y'all prefer, but so far I'm thinking about just going back to how I used to do it, where they're just going to be at the end. But like I said, if you guys can let me know which one you guys prefer, that'll be really helpful. With that being said, thank you for listening, and let's get on to the video. Hello and welcome back to another episode of my series called Budget Decks, where we try to make decks that are affordable and somewhat competitive for playing against friends or even playing at a local card shop. Now in today's episode, we have Shinobirds, a spirit ritual archetype which is good at breaking boards and has a decent resource loop to bat. This is an older archetype from back in 2017 and has gotten some good support in the last year. The deck you see now in front of you cost $31.51. Now to start off this deck profile, we run 3 Incantation Talismantra, 1 Incantation Bookstone, 1 Amano Awado, 3 Aratama, 2 Nikitama, 2 Sakitama, 3 Incantation Candle, and 1 Incantation Pensiplume. For the rituals, we run 2 Shinobaron Peacock, 1 Shinobaroness Peacock, 1 Incantation Chalice Slime, 2 Shinobaron Shade Peacock, and 2 Shinobaroness Shade Peacock. For the spells, we run 3 Pre-Preparation of Rites, 2 Pre-Preparation of Rites, 3 Shinobird Calling, 1 Incantation Inception, 2 Shinobird Power Spot, and 3 Stars Align Above the Shrine. We run 2 for the traps, 2 Stars Align across the Milky Way. Now for the extra deck, we run 1 number 97 Draglubion, 1 number 38 Hope Harbinger, 1 Time Thief Redoer, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 number 41 Baguska, 1 Castel the Sky Blaster, 1 Daigusto Emerald, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 number 60 Dugaras, and 1 number 100 Numeron Dragon. We run 1 Axis Code Talker, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Dino Mundo, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, and 1 Cross Sheep. Now when it comes to breaking boards, like I brought up earlier, the way you're going to be breaking boards in this deck is using Shinobaron Peacock and Shinobaroness Peacock. Shinobaron bounces monsters up to 3, and then after that he special summons 1 level 4 spirit monster ignoring summoning condition. Shinobaroness does the opposite by bouncing up to 3 spell and trap cards to the deck, and then special summoning 1 level 4 lower monster from deck ignoring summoning conditions. So this one special summons from deck, this one special summons from hand, but they both do share the secondary ability of when they are returned to the hand, you get to special summon 2 tokens, giving you some free resources for more ritual plays for either next turn or for the next turn. Now the other 2 ritual monsters, Shinobaron Shade Peacock, when he's ritual summoned, or when you contribute this ritual summoned card, add 1 spirit monster and 1 ritual spell card from your deck to your hand, and then if he's banished during the next standby phase, you can special summon him and during the end phase return him back to the hand. Shinobirds Shade Peacock, in my own opinion, is better because she adds any one spell and trap card that specifically mentions rich or spirit monsters in its text, and then has the ability, once again, during the turn it was banished, special summon this banished card. Then the card you're mainly wanting to add is going to be Stars Align Above the Shrine. So use her ability to get into this, which I will preface is your main resource loop. This is where the resource loop comes into play. Pretty much Stars Align Above the Shrine, whenever a wind ritual monster is returned to the hand, once per turn you can twice per turn you can activate this effect, which allows you to add one spirit monster or ritual spell card that is banished or in your graveyard, or set one Stars Align across the Milky Way. Now with this, you got the Stars Align Above the Milky Way, which has its ability, reveal one ritual monster, add one ritual monster with the same level but different name from your deck to your hand, and in the same turn that it was sent to the graveyard, you can activate this ability still, where you can ritual summon a monster in your hand by discarding one, ritual spell, and then it turns that effect into this one. So what you're mainly going to be doing is ritual summoning these during your opponent's turn by using the trap, and because they have that secondary ability, you get to special summon one level 4 or lower, ignoring summoning conditions, which is going to be your Amano Awado. Amano Awado, since it was special summoned, not normal summoned, and it was ignoring summoning conditions, so it can be special summoned, it negates, or it makes it so your opponent cannot activate monster effects and you, but since you're playing a spirit deck, it doesn't really matter since his effect does not affect spirit monsters. This is where the whole, resource loop kind of comes in. Every time you ritual summon, these two will leave tokens on the field. This will add back, ritual monsters, monsters, spells, set the Stars Align for your opponent's next turn. This is why also this deck can actually be ran turn 1, because you can do that combo, set this, use during your opponent's turn, do the same thing again by summoning out Amano Awado. These cards do the same thing when it comes to resource looping when they are banished, which this card can banish them from the graveyard. They re-special summon themselves, giving you more resources. Power Spot, not only does it give you 500 attack and defense, when a wind monster's returned back to your hand, you can add any spirit monster or ritual spell card from your deck to your hand, giving you even more resources. The incantations are shut down by Amano Awado, but by the time you get to Amano Awado, you don't really need them anymore. They're just kind of your way of getting into the different rituals in the first place, which is why you run them. When it comes to the Aratama, Nikitama, and Sakitama, their whole thing is getting to the level 4 XYZs, like Abyss Dweller, which locks down the graveyard, Dugars and Emerald for draw power, and Emerald also for shuffling cards back into the deck. Sky for breaking more boards by returning cards back into the deck your opponent controls, Baguska for quick negation if you can't ritual summon, Tornado Dragon popping spell and traps. Draglubion can special summon either Hope Harbinger or Numeron Dragon. Numeron Dragon for the OTK because he'll be immediate 9,000 after being summoned off of Draglubion, or he will even be higher if you can summon any of the level 4s with these guys. Hope Harbinger is just a free spell negate. Access Code is kind of your secondary or your another OTK that you can do with all the other Link monsters you are running in the deck. You can go into him if you can't get into the OTK with the rituals or with the XYZ. When it comes to the side deck, these are just cards I thought you can maybe add to the deck to power it up more. One thing I was going to run, but I couldn't fit into the deck with the pricing I had it already at, was a Zeus engine, which I was going to be running Utopia C39, which can go on top of Utopia, which after you battle, going into Zeus to give you a free 4 material Zeus. Ash Blossom is just a stand-in for any hand traps you want to run, so like Effect Veiler, Ash Blossom, Ghost Ogre, things like that. These are some engines I found that you can run in this deck to make it stronger. So the first engine I did find that people have used was the Nemthys engine, and this mainly revolves around Conductor, because when Conductor's ritual summoned, you can special summon one Nemthys ritual monster from hand or deck, which you're going to summon Devotee. Devotee, when ritual summoned, special summons one Nemthys monster from deck, which will either be Disciple of Nemthys or Matriarch, and you're using the Nemthys to go into Nemthys the Sacred Preserver, which his ability is, during your main phase, if this card was link summoned, you can activate one of these abilities, and the main ability you're going to be using, or the only one really, is this first, which adds one level 8 Winged Beast monster from your deck to your hand, and then you can add one ritual spell from your graveyard to hand, which these are, Winged Beast level 8. So that's where that whole engine works. The secondary engine that I found, and in my own opinion that is better, is a Dogmatica engine. This just adds more of that control factor and turn 1 plays you can do. Things like Ecclesia will add any Dogmatica card, and Dogmatica as a whole is good against extra deck monsters. That's their main, thing they do is go against those. But when it comes to controlling, you can use things like Dogmatica Punishment to send one card from your extra deck to the graveyard to pop cards. And not only that, you can actually use your extra deck now as a resource for getting more cards into your deck or even blowing up things. As an example, with like Disciple of Nadir, send one monster from your extra deck to add one, Dogmatic or Fallen to Malbaz. And the card, like, for example, that you can send is Herald of the Arclight, which adds any ritual monster or ritual spell card from your deck to your hand. This is kind of the cool little thing because, I'll be honest, the Shinobird deck, you can actually just run it without going to the extra deck. Hell, I found more often than not I hadn't gone into the extra deck, but the option was there. And this deck kind of uses that whole ability of, well, you're not really going to be using the extra deck all that much, so now you can replace a lot of these cards with cards that are going to be more beneficial, like Herald of the Arclight. So this is an engine I would recommend higher, just because there are a lot of good extra deck monsters that have that ability, that have good abilities when they are sent to the graveyard. Now, in my own opinion, the Shinobird deck as a whole, from my play testing, the things I can give about it is, it's for one really good for beginner players. It's not that complicated. It's very, once you learn the combo, it's pretty straightforward. The only downside I can actually have about this deck, the only downside mainly, is it's heavily, and I mean heavily, reliant on its field spell. Without this field spell, the deck will kind of slow down and have a hard time getting back into the game. This card kind of does a lot for the archetype as a whole, doing the whole resource loop and making sure you have plays, because it can also, I didn't bring it up, can also act as a ritual spell. And trust me, with this deck, you do ritual summon a lot, as most ritual decks do, and this just gives you another way of ritual summoning as well as the resource loop. So without it, this deck does have a hard time playing. It just does so much that if your opponent gets rid of it, you're more or less in an uphill battle at that point. If you do end up playing this deck, I just wanted to emphasize that just so you know what you're getting into. This deck is good, it is strong, but that's kind of the major downside about it, is it heavily is reliant on this. So do know if you do go against a player with a lot of back row removal, it's going to be a lot more difficult, which is why I recommended the Dogmatica variant more as well, like the Dogmatica Shinobird, just because it gives you other ways to get into your resources and gives you things to disrupt your opponent to help you keep your, field spell and other board presence alive. Now, with all of this being said, let's get into the replays and I can show you how this deck performs.